In Super Mario Odyssey, you can move however you want. You can jump, you can glide, you can move up, down, left, or right, but what if we got rid of one, specifically the down control? Now, as you already know, Super Mario Odyssey is a 3D platformer, which means moving the left stick upwards means forward progression, and moving the stick downwards means backwards regression. So if we completely remove that down control, we would only be able to move forward in a 3D game. So in this video, we're gonna see if we can beat Super Mario Odyssey without moving backwards, which means we can't adjust the camera either, because that's essentially cheating. So first up is Cap Kingdom, where we get past the main section pretty smoothly until we get to the Topper boss fight, where things get pretty tricky because as soon as we jump on Topper's head, we're pretty much stuck because we're facing literally against a wall and can't move anywhere else unless... Oh, yeah, I forgot we can move left and right too. So yeah, in this challenge, in order to actually turn around in the game, we're gonna have to make big circles by moving left or right since we can't instantly turn around anymore. But lucky for us in this boss fight, the game refocuses on Topper once he gets out of his hats, which I surprisingly didn't have to interact with. But with Cap done and a new strategy figured out, we can now move on to Cascade Kingdom, where we face another challenge, which is getting the first moon out of the rock. Now the reason why this is such a challenge is because we have to use the down control to actually activate the chain jump, and without that, we can't get the first moon. And I know you're all probably saying, you can just shake the controllers to do it instead of moving your character with the sticks. But to do that, we'd actually have to move the camera as the capture defaults you facing the rock. But not to worry, because I did manage to find a solution to this problem. Now as you can see here, every time you prep the chain chomp for launch, the camera turns to the direction you're about to launch to. So we can actually use that to our advantage as we prep the chain chomp to launch away from the rock, so the camera turns and cancels just in time before our left stick moves downwards. And now we're in the perfect position to launch the chain chomp into the rock and set free the first moon to proceed through the rest of Cascade fairly easily and move straight on to Sand Kingdom, which is a more open kingdom compared to Cascade and Cap, which are way smaller in compared to Sand. But now that we have the strategy of rotating around in order to run the opposite direction, we can freely move anywhere we want without hassle, but it'll take way longer than just turning around right away. We use this strategy right as we enter the kingdom in order to get to the oasis, where we get our first two moons plus the bird, which luckily flew past us on the way to the ground pound moon. We then move on to two more ground pound moons and the moon on top the archway. The bullet bill will be used for the next two moons on the pillar and the Jaxie ruins, and the only way to get back to the main ruins is to make a whole wrap around the poison, as I always forget to hit the sand pillar checkpoint flag. But after these main moons, it's pretty much smooth sailing from here, except for trying to get into this damn pipe without seeing where it actually is. But now with Sand Kingdom done, we can now move on to Wooded Kingdom, which isn't one of my favorite kingdoms in the world because of its size, but let's get through it, shall we? The first three moons we get once we enter the kingdom are the Rock, Bunny, and Shot moons, which requires a lot of turning and twisting to get in the right position to actually capture all these moons at once, especially the Bunny since it runs in a circle. But after we get the first three, we move on to the top of the building, where we get the first story moon and the first nut moon in the kingdom. The next nut moon is also pretty easy to get, but since we're now stuck in this crevice without being able to turn around, we just time our backflip onto the platform in order to escape. Next up is the Spewer boss fight, which should have been a lot easier than I made it out to be, but overall pretty easy since the camera focuses on Spewer the entire time. And now for the rest of the moons, which is just along the way to the final boss fight of Wooded Kingdom, including the tank moons. And yes, I will be counting these because the use of the tanks are mandatory to get through the rest of the game, especially in Metro, even though the camera is moving while in capture. But now with Wooded done, we move on to Lake, which overall isn't too bad other than getting stuck in this wall, which took a few left and right turns to get out, but we did manage to do this kingdom without any down presses whatsoever, and it was short too, which was just the icing on the cake. Next up is the Bowser boss fight, which will always be easy even without turning around. Just a few wraparounds and we're good to go with Lost Kingdom, which didn't cause too many problems either. The only thing was that I couldn't go for my usual route, as most of these moons required you to turn around, as this kingdom is relatively smaller compared to the others in the game. I just had to pick and choose other moons that wouldn't put me at risk of using the down control. But now with that little piss up out the way, we can now move on to bigger fish to fry, which is Metro Kingdom. And this kingdom is just a more complicated version of Wooded because it isn't linear like Wooded is, as you actually have to search for the moons in this kingdom rather than they just be given to you on the path of the story. And the required moons are a heck of a lot more too, being 20. So let's just say we have a lot of work to do, but first we need to beat the Mecha Wiggler, which is the second and last time we'll be using a tank in this game. As I said before, it will count as it's required to move the camera around to beat the boss. But after defeating the Mecha Wiggler, we go straight into Day Metro, where we must find the remaining 14 moons so we can leave the city of New Donkers. The first moon we get is the Remote Car moon, which is as simple as it gets, followed by the Shot moon, Bench moon, and the Roulette moon. Next we need to go into sub areas, since each sub area has at least 2 moons in them, which brings us up to 14 moons in total, and all we have left are the rest of Pauline's band and a couple moons scattered around the overworld, which brings us up to the 20 moons that we need to leave New Donk City. And yes, I made it sound more complicated than it was because that's what it felt like. Snow and Seaside are up next, and both are equally short, which makes it easier for me as it's a lot more linear of a stage, which means less searching for stars and just collecting them, and also a lot less smaller spaces, so I don't need to come up with any solutions to escape them without turning around. But let's get into Luncheon, which is our last open sandbox kingdom before we get to the end game, and it feels like the further into this game I get, the more I dislike these really open kingdoms because it's just so much hassle to find all these moons. But Luncheon in general is more of a longer kingdom than it is non-linear because 90% of the moons that are obtained are in a linear structure and are on par with the story. The last 2 moons are the only ones that I actually have to search for, which is found in the easiest sub area in the kingdom, which is the fork flicking sub area, and that's 18 moons collected just like that. I honestly thought that Luncheon would be much harder than it was because of its size, but it really helped that literally every moon was on the story path compared to Metro, and I was able to wrap around if I needed to. But now for Bowser's Kingdom, which I thought at the beginning of all this would be one of, if not the hardest kingdom to tackle because of the Mecha Brutal boss fight, but I was wrong. Literally did not have a single issue with it. Only the last phase where the mech would get a little too close to me and I wouldn't be able to deflect the bounce back, but that's about it. The kingdom itself is very linear, as you all probably know, and the boss fight was surprisingly played out very similarly to how it's normally played out, only that I'm permanently running in circles the entire fight. And Moon Kingdom was pretty much the same, other than me almost screwing up the Moon Cave skip, which would have tilted me into oblivion. But the Bowser fight is always the easiest fight in the game, as always, and the escape sequence, you literally never turn around, so the down control isn't even in existence. But I must say, in the pillar section, it was kind of difficult to navigate since I'm unable to move around the camera whatsoever. But other than that, we break all 4 pillars to reveal the middle cube, which we break with our bare hands to make the final capture and beat the game in just about 3 hours time. So in the end, the real question is, how hard was it to not use the down control and not be able to adjust the camera the entire game? And my answer is, not that difficult. In my opinion, it's really more of an annoyance than a difficulty thing, and it's really inconvenient to navigate certain parts of a kingdom without moving the camera. And also, not being able to instantly turn around makes getting most moons in the kingdom almost impossible, like the moons lodged in the walls, for example. In those areas, you can't escape without turning around. But Mario Odyssey has many moons to replace those with, but the only challenge is being able to find those moons to replace, or you'll just be stuck running in circles. So try this challenge out for yourself if you have the patience, because it may have seemed fast when I was explaining it, but it was a really tedious challenge to complete, and I'll probably never attempt it again. But with that, we've reached the end of the video. If you like this video and want to see more stuff like this, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and check out the channel for more challenge videos just like this one. Hope you all have an amazing rest of your day, and I'll see you all in the next video. Peace!